Welcome to the Phillip Wylie Show. Take a look behind the curtain of professional hacking and hear compelling discussions with guests from diverse backgrounds who share a common curiosity and passion for challenges and their job. And now, here's your host, offensive security professional, educator, mentor, and author, Phillip Wylie.
Hello and welcome to another episode of the Phillip Wylie Show. Today I'm joined by Grant Smith and Justin Perez. We know each other from the cybersecurity community and I believe met at Hack SpaceCon last year. And so really cool to have these guys on. And one of the things I have to go back to Michael. He's always given me good recommendations on people to have on the podcast. He introduced me to White Knight Labs and some other folks in White Knight Labs. I haven't met those guys before that, but he's always given me good recommendations on people to have on as guests. So welcome to the show.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So how are you guys' new year going so far?
It's going well. It's pretty busy. We got a lot of updates we're working on with both our platform and work changes as well. So both our full-time roles with the new year, lots going on. It's an exciting time, but very busy.
Yeah, that's good. So I guess before we get into it very far, if you guys wouldn't mind sharing your hacker origin stories, kind of how you started out up until where you are today.
Yeah, for me, it started at a pretty young age. So, my dad was big into technology. So we'd always had some cool computers, new routers and stuff. And so we had this family computer that I was allowed to use very gracefully. And I always kept infecting it with malware somehow. I was just downloading random things, trying to download games or something like that. And eventually I would just completely break the computer. And that kind of struck something with me. I was like, oh, how does that do that? So then I started learning how to code, very poorly. And I started Visual Basic. And then I moved to more, higher level programming languages. But then around middle school, I started playing League of Legends. And it's an online video, massively multiplayer online role-playing game or something like that. And I started developing cheats for it. So I would get into learn how to reverse engineer and injecting DLLs and using detours to hook functions in the game. And then I write my own code to script the game for me and be really good at it. And that kind of unlocked a lot of things for me. And then even in college, we had this incident. I was sitting in an exam for my physics 2 class. And in this class, we took the exams in a large auditorium with the professor, and we were using this software called Lockdown Browser. And basically it was just a secure program that you would install on your computer. You would launch it when you were there, and basically a full screen web browser, so you couldn't alt tab or have Discord running or anything like that to try to cheat on the exam. And so we were sitting in one of the exams, and the exam just started. And they give you a password too, so you can't just take it whenever it unlocks. You have to be there because they'll give you the password verbally. But I noticed that people were finishing the exam in 10 minutes, and it was a 2-hour exam. So I was like, that's weird. Come to find out, a few weeks later, what they were actually doing was they were closing their laptops, telling the instructor that they were done, and then go back to their dorm room, open it back up, and it would still be running. So then they can just have their phone or whatever. And so I was like, if that's that easy to break, I'm sure if I actually look into this technically, it'd be even easier. So then, I didn't do it to cheat or anything. I didn't need to cheat in physics too, but it just got me thinking. And then, so I actually wrote up a whole blog post about how I reverse engineered it. And basically just by injecting some code into it, I could rewrite their code to think that there's no Discord running. I could overwrite their alt tab, check. And I would say that's kind of the hacker story, just making software, other people's software, do what I wanted to do, pretty much.
Very cool.
Yeah. Justin, he led our cyber team at Virginia Tech. So I got to work with him through some of that and learn from him. I'm by no means as technical on a low level as he is. I mostly stick with web applications and just network pen test,
Yeah, I
things
was
like
asking Grant
emails.
yesterday some questions about some web testing things. I was completely lost. So I was like, where do I even start
Yeah,
with any of this PHP?
yeah, yeah. So that's where my uh, expertise is, I guess you could call it. But I started out again, very young age. We also had a family computer in the house in the kitchen, and I had like a parental controls on it. So Mac had like parental controls built into it at the time, and I found out. I don't even know where I found this out, but I found out that you could boot it into safety mode and then add a admin user just through there. I had no clue what the commands I was running were. I was just like I wrote it down on like a piece of paper and kept it in my pocket. And whenever they found out and deleted that user, I would just add a new user. And my parents had no clue what was going on. But it was a good time. I got to play. I think it was Riopolis at the time. I was playing all the time, just in my browser. Um, but yeah, so that's where I really started. And then throughout high school, I would just play pranks and stuff. I mean, like loose SPF records on our school email, so you could spoof people's email addresses from inside the school. So like sending emails from our headmaster to my friends or something. And yeah, making people they have default admin passwords on the computers. So you'd choose like on Mac, you could do like say something so people would be in the computer lab and all of a sudden their computer would start talking to them. It was pretty fun stuff, just pranks really in high school. And then getting to college, I remember freshman year, we started a cyber team and Justin was leading that first training. And I get there and I sit down and we're talking about, I believe we are going over networking. So like basics of like TCP IP and I was lost. I was lost in the sauce, and Justin like called me out on it. And as a freshman,
Yeah,
that really caught me off guard, but also it was a really good learning opportunity. Like, hey, I can do all these fun pranks and stuff, and yes, I'm technical, I can understand things, but I'm really missing this like foundational part of just security, but IT in general. And so just learning that throughout college was a great opportunity being under Justin. And then I took over after him once he graduated and led the team from there. And then now, yeah, I get to work in red teaming. Very lucky to have the opportunity right out of college, and yeah, great community to be in.
Very cool. So why don't you guys share with me about PhantomSec?
Yeah,
yeah, go ahead, Grant.
yeah. So yeah, we were talking. I was in Japan, so my wife is in the Navy, and so probably spend like 9-ish months so far out of the year in Japan. Just moving back and forth, which is a little bit crazy, but yeah, we were talking on the phone during the early hours, and Justin was talking about you were talking about some like evasion thing that I had sent you or something. I'm pretty sure some like EDR evasion technique,
Yeah,
and we were just talking about it, and then all of a sudden, I think you mentioned you were like we could just like start a business off of this because people just don't know how to get by EDRs. People have to do this as part of their job as a pen tester, red team operator. You have to get around EDRs every time you go on engagement, or at least AV, so Windows Defender at a minimum, basically nowadays. And that's a struggle for a lot of people. A lot of people aren't developers; they're not comfortable writing in C, C++, C sharp. I mean, there's some Rust tools now and NIM and other languages, but they're they're really not comfortable being a developer because that's not their job. They should understand what the tool does, but they don't need to know how to write it. And there's not great solutions out there besides one other company that can do that. And we're the only US based company now that provides that automated capability to bypass those platforms for you on engagements. And now we also have expanded that out. So we're looking into expanding into more automated testing where clients can basically test their environments against these certain techniques. So you want to test your environment against an actual APT, not something that you set exclusion on. So you get actual, I guess you could call it malware on your machine. And how does your team actually react to that? You didn't set an exclusion on it. You didn't tell them about it beforehand. And then we're also looking at integrating some aspects of generative AI into it, into how it's generated. So you might not know all these different techniques, so API hammering, what different AMSI bad passes are. But you can talk to a generative AI that has all our docs and all our knowledge in it and get a payload built for you that way. Just because the way it works, it's like a simple API that we've set up. We do have a nice user interface, but behind it all is just an API. And generative AI is pretty good at that thing. It's good at understanding and regurgitating information, and that simplifies it for our users and also for us in general, because it can answer any question, not any, but most questions that users have.
Very cool. I have to check that out. So you've got a website for that people can go to access that capability?
Yeah, it's called PhantomSec.tools. It's the name of our company. It's a pretty cool domain because we have our tool names like underneath as a subdomain. I didn't know the tools TLD existed until we started the company, actually.
Oh, that's cool. So how long have you been in business?
Since like June of last year, I think, right, Grant?
Oh, that's good.
And we finally started selling, opening our doors, signing customers in kind of an alpha version in September, and we moved a few months ago to more stable beta version. It's not like the product doesn't work. It's just that like the API and stuff is changing, new features, moving features that just don't work, and so it's unstable and like that kind of sense.
Yeah, very cool.
Yeah.
It's good to find those type of tools because a lot of times you see so much related to web app pen testing, some things to do some slight automations and stuff for that. I don't like there's that product out there, Trickus, that the guy that started that company as a pen tester and also did some bug bounty and things that he's using for automation, that he set up a product so people could use it. So it's really cool to see someone that's creating stuff for the red team and more of the host space or network offensive security side.
Yeah, it's definitely something that, I mean, I used it personally for some of the projects I was working on, testing, and then building out into a whole platform. I mean, there's a whole, uh, it was a lot. Mm, It was something that most red teams are, if they have a developer on it, like they've already built out some sort of automation for this. We just we have more time to do it. We have the resourcing to do it and the skills to do it. And also along with that, the polymorphism aspect. So the thing with something like this, it's all based around detections. If one payload gets caught, we don't want everyone else's payloads getting caught. And so the aspect of like polymorphism during generation, compile time, changing all these different variables and the execution flow, that's something that we've worked a lot on so that these payloads don't all get caught once one person gets caught.
Yeah, I mean, we've done so much research on this topic that I'm giving a talk in 2 weeks at a VentureCon. It's like a conference for DoD members about how you can use like the Zig programming language to like write code that is polymorphic at compile time. So like so at compile time, like you build it and you pass in like a random number. So it's deterministic as well. If you have the same seed, it's the same binary. Just because there's so many techniques, and most techniques out there, it's like you have to like munge with the actual source code, right? So you have like a step where you have source code, and I have to like edit this actual source code, and then I compile it. Whereas the technique that we have, it's like the code that edits itself is in the code itself. So there is no like second step of actually editing code. It's just compile.
I wonder if you could use this on the OSCP.
Yeah, for sure. And then like something like OSEP as well. Anything with AV, you're not going to have an issue with it.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's very cool. So I guess this is, you guys know how to do this stuff manually. So I'm sure this really scales what you can do and makes it a lot quicker.
Oh yeah. We've saved one of our clients over 1,000 hours of development time within the short time that they've been with us. Most companies, we save like a few hundred hours of either like the red team operators have to come off operations to develop their tooling or update their tooling, or they hire like full-time developers or contract developers to build out these tools for them, and we automate that for them now.
Yeah, very cool. So what are you guys' recommendations for someone who wants to get into offensive security or red teaming?
I would really say get as much hands-on experience as you can. There's a lot of books out there. There's a lot of reading that you can do, and it's all great for the most part. But until you actually perform it, until you actually like troubleshoot those issues that you do run into in an actual environment, like why is this certain component break-in in this certain configuration. Um, you're never really going to know how to actually do it. So performing those different Active Directory attacks, I mean, for us, like EDR evasion, that's just a fact of life now. Performing these sorts of actions with Windows Defender on, not disabled, those different things, especially if you want to get into network penetration testing or red teaming, you just have to learn those things and what actions can be seen by the defenders and how you respond to that.
Yeah, I would say like get curious, like really curious, and just like I mean, for me, it's like whenever I see something new about cybersecurity, I'm always like, how? Well, how does that work? Why does that work? And for me, I feel like that curiosity mindset has been super helpful in finding vulnerabilities or like just kind of understanding how a system works. Like sometimes I'll be up to like 2 a.m. just reading Wikipedia and just kind of complete like full dive like into some topic. And then I would say like don't get discouraged as well. I mean, it is a very big field. So even if you really hate Active Directory, like I hate Active Directory, I don't know anything about Active Directory personally, and that's okay. I'm just not gonna focus on that. I'm gonna focus on things that I find fun and interesting and challenging. And that's one of the great things I love about cybersecurity is it's such a broad and encompassing field. There's so many niches within it.
Yeah, that's the cool thing that you're mentioning about finding things you like and dive into that, because it seems like sometimes people that tried to learn everything, such a broad span of topics, it's really good to get really good at one of them when you're focusing on trying to learn so much.
Yeah,
Yeah,
there's
exactly.
so many things like we focus on like web exploitation. You can focus on like binary exploitation. Open source intelligence is a huge field as well. So many niches.
Yep. Once you get those foundations down, just
Yeah.
go with what you like.
And so since you guys went to a university, what are your thoughts on, were there things that you learned there that you may have not learned on your own that's helped you?
I'll let Justin go first on that one. I have some things.
I feel like to cybersecurity, sometimes you don't need to know how things work. I'll give a great example. So Grant and I, we were competing in this CTF that the NSA hosts. So the NSA hosts this CTF called like NCX, the NSA Cyber Exercise. And so it's like a 3-day CTF. And on the last day, I believe, or the first day, there's an attack and defend CTF. And so, like, Grant and I were like leading this, and we spent a few weeks before, well, we spent like a whole year planning. How are we going to defend our boxes? Like, what's our game strategy? And so, what we ended up doing was, like, I wrote a script to connect all of our boxes and get like a PCAP dump like every 10 minutes or 5 minutes, and then send that to my laptop. And then that would go to another server where we could monitor like flags leaving and like leaving or entering our network, essentially. And because the flags are format, it's all regex. And so one of the boxes on there was an LDAP box. And we, for the life of us, could not figure out what this exploit was, but our box got pwned and we didn't understand why. We had a PCAP of it leaving it, and we were like, how does this work? So what we ended up doing was we just like took the PCAP and just replayed it against every other team's server, and we got the flag. And I had no idea what was happening. To be honest with you, I still don't know what the vulnerability was to this day. But that was like something that clicked my brain there because I was like, like even though I didn't get to the right answer, even though I didn't get to the answer the correct way, I still got to the answer. And I think school teaches you very strictly, you need to follow this, and this, and this instruction, like steps to accomplish this problem. Kind of challenge that and saying, no, you have free creativity because your end goal is to solve the problem. Your end goal isn't to follow a checklist.
That was a great time. But again, that was something extracurricular, and that was something we all volunteered to do, that sort of competition.
Yeah.
When it comes to school and cybersecurity, in my experience and many of the students I've talked to at other universities, there's exceptions to this. There are some great universities out there um, in regards to cybersecurity and how they teach it. But many universities don't focus enough on experiential learning, and they focus too much on here's a textbook and like some Quizlets and just go through, learn these terms. We'll quiz you on all these acronyms, and now you're certified by our school to lead in cybersecurity. You've never actually configured an Active Directory network. You've never set up a PC. Like you don't even know what a CPU is or where it goes on the motherboard. it's interesting to see that because a lot of the students that we get into our program would have taken multiple years of courses and still not know what TCP is and what SYN, basically any of
Sync,
the
right?
they would not understand these basics of networking or how to use a Linux machine. It was a big pain in our side because we want the school to support us and give us students that are already trained in the basics so that we can take them and give them more specialized training and use them on competitions and go out and win these like bigger competitions like Cyberforce or CCDC is a big one. And unfortunately, the school is not teaching what you need to learn in the field if you want to go into any technical role. And so we had to teach those foundations to them. And I firmly believe we helped out hundreds of students throughout the time we were doing that program. And the training program we installed is still going on there, extracurricular. Like you have to go at 7 p.m. after all your classes and go learn until like 9 p.m. because the schools just don't teach it. So yeah, learning how to set up a VM, use Linux, networking, basics of web exploitation, basics of Active Directory exploitation, basics of like actually doing like sysadmin work. Um, so it's school is a great place to find a community and connections, and it is a good place to learn from other people. But for the majority of schools currently, they don't know how to teach cybersecurity correctly, and yeah, it's unfortunate, but that's probably how it'll be until schools and universities up their game a little bit in regards to that.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because I used to teach at a 2-year college, and we were very hands on. And then I'd run into people that went to 4-year schools, and they would ask me. I ran to someone who was a server at a restaurant that I went to, and he was asking me why are my friends that got 2-year degrees finding jobs easier than me. And one of the things I saw, because I know like where he went to school, University of Texas at Dallas, like for their Cisco programs, it says hands-on labs if time permits. And with like a 2-year college, we did a lot of hands-on. And so that's where, one of the things I was kind of seeing that like locally, what some of the 4-year schools were missing out on is the hands-on part of it. The theory and stuff, that's important, but they were just missing out on the hands-on experience.
Yeah,
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 and
exactly.
I would say like in my experience, so I was a computer science major. Grant, what was your major? Business information?
Cybersecurity management.
Oh, food management. Yeah, so mine was like, there's a little bit of cybersecurity. Like we did, there's one class where we did like for like a 1 week like project. It was like very basic binary exploitation, but it was all like ROP gadgets that were already in the binary. So it wasn't that much, but it was all like it seems to be like a disconnect. It's either like the extreme ends of cybersecurity where you have like, you know, the high level executives, so that kind of track. But then the computer science is a low level, more of like a software engineering, but they teach you all the theory behind it. But, you know, I used to work at Microsoft and software engineer there, and nothing really kind of prepared me for that, I would say, besides my own like learning, because, you know, they're teaching you the theory. This algorithm is like O(n) squared complexity. This is how all these complex data structures that I still haven't used work. I mean, like, there's no like, you know, middle ground of like, hey, like this is, you know, a degree that's meant for people who want to become, you know, red teamers or pen testers. It's kind of the polar opposites, I would say.
Yeah, that's one of the things I think is difficult for doing any kind of classes, because when I was at Dallas College, I taught a pen testing class, but I was always really picky when I would tell someone, if you're going to take a class from someone that's done pen testing, because there's a lot of speculation, because you've probably witnessed this too, where everyone where there's cases where they think that a pen test is the same thing as adversary emulation, that you're trying not to get caught, and it's not always the goal. But when you're getting that kind of information taught to these students, there's a lot of things, them going out into the workforce, they're going to be kind of unprepared because they think it's this one way and it's not. And I can just imagine a lot of other things that may be shared with students from someone that doesn't have the hands-on experience with it.
Yeah, exactly. A lot of professors. I mean, cybersecurity is a fairly new field, and so it makes sense that something like academia, which has slow intake of professors, and they got to go through get their doctorate and become like tenured and all this other stuff that takes years. It makes sense that it hasn't made its way in, and people who work in pen testing, which is still like a fairly new field if you didn't work in government beforehand. Yeah, it makes sense that they just don't have that pen testing experience. They don't have even like most of them don't have experience working in a SOC or any of that.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting too that it hasn't been that long that they've been offering 4-year degrees in cybersecurity, because before they used to have like a master's in information assurance, and it was just kind of, yeah, it really wasn't real deep technical. And so there really wasn't much, degrees around that. And now, you've got a lot more schools that have degrees in cybersecurity.
Yeah, it's definitely something. There's a lot of money in the field, and either government funding or that alongside lots of students want to take it because it's the hot field right now. Everyone can get six-figure salaries coming out of school in cybersecurity, which maybe used to be the case, but we were leaving school, that really wasn't the case. Just these past few years, especially this year, I'm hearing from a lot of students that I helped train in this program saying that like it's hard to get internships, it's hard to get full-time jobs now in security.
So what are your views on certifications? Do you think they're important to breaking into cybersecurity?
Breaking in, yes, and I don't think they should be, but it's a hard to prove your experience outside of sitting down with somebody and doing like a technical interview. And so for HR, or because like you open up an internship application or internship job opportunity, you get like, I mean, we got like 400 applicants to our internship opportunity. And without being able to sift through those in a speedy manner, so we didn't look for certifications, but we were looking for certain years of experience in like, like you learned C++ in college early on and you got C++ experience, C experience, that sort of thing. That's what we were looking for. But for like a pen test role, if you can see somebody who's gotten, even if it's just something like, for me, my first certification, the one that landed me my first internship, was EJPT, which is like E-Learn Security Junior Penetration Tester. It's not an expensive certification, thankfully, and it's a hands-on certification. And the person who was interviewing me, well, who reviewed my resume, the hiring manager, said that stood out, that I had a certification and it was in something offensive related. And then when they interviewed me, they asked me about it, and I was able to describe what I was doing during that exam, which is a hands-on lab. You have to pivot around the network. It's very straightforward. It's very simple, like early on, easy hack the box machines. But being able to describe that to them and have that on my resume got me that interview and then got me that role after that. Because just having courses is not enough. You can put all the courses you want, but it doesn't really stand out on a resume amongst a crowd. That's what you have to do for a security related role these days.
Yeah, I'm not like too familiar with all the certifications. I'm more of like a software engineering, reverse engineer kind of background. So, for me, like I have Security Plus from CompTIA, which is definitely, I wouldn't say security related. It's just how many acronyms do you know, pretty much. But then I got the same cert that Grant did, the JPT, just for fun, and it was cheap, so I didn't mind it. But yeah, I would say it's kind of unfortunate that the industry is slanted that way, where if you don't have a certification, you look worse than your peers who are applying for the same job, even though you may be at the same level or even higher than. But because they hold that certification, they are better. And there's so many of them as well that I feel like some people might feel like they need to get 16 or 20 certifications in random things just to feel like they are a good candidate as well. Even at my job right now, like I talk to people who have imposter syndromes because they go on LinkedIn and there's all these people have all these like titles and their SANS courses and all those certs and things, and but that person is, I think, smarter than me. That's my take on it. I feel like.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting because you take some people with some of those certifications, they're not able to create their own malware or do exploits or any kind of evasion. So it doesn't necessarily mean that that they're on the same level as someone like yourself. But it's also kind of interesting too to see people with a ton of certifications, because at some point you're just kind of thinking, are you just really good? The practical stuff, it's kind of hard to be good at taking a test on that. That does require some skill, but sometimes you see a ton of them. I remember back in my IT days when people would just try to get every single certification they could. And after a while, you just kind of, I don't know, it's in my opinion, I think sometimes it looks kind of negative when you have too many.
I agree. Yeah.
It does get kind of crazy. I mean, when we received intern applications, we'd see on people's resumes, there's insane amounts of certifications.
And they're all abbreviated
like
too. So
a
it's
whole
just
page,
like,
whole page.
someone throw up on the resume.
Yeah.
So what are your guys' views on like CVEs, someone getting a CVE, how do you value that?
I think it depends on the CVE. I would go read it first.
Okay.
Yeah, it definitely stands out, and it's something I would definitely go read, and I'd be like, okay, this is something that's actually impressive. And I mean, even something that like you just looked into something and it might be simple, but you just had the curiosity to go look into it and find something that no one else had, especially when it's in something like a big platform, even something like open source that has like over 500 stars on GitHub sort of thing. Something like that is a positive for sure. And I'd interview that candidate for the most part.
I feel like I would want to interview a candidate who has a CVE and a certification personally. I mean, I would go read the cert and see if it's like actually something really small you notice. I don't know. Because I feel like some CVEs you might just get because you noticed, I don't know, that it's a good example of like a really simple CVE. I guess like a SQL injection that's doesn't really lead to anything. Like
cross-site scripting or
cross-site.
like
That's
that.
a much
Like
better
reflective
example.
cross-site
Cross-site
scripting in a form.
Like, I mean, that's neat. Good job for finding that. That's no discredit to that. But yeah, I'd say there's different levels of it, and it's a much better gauge for me, I feel like, than a cert, because I have like proof. Like I have like the report of like what you did, but I feel like I'd be more interested not in like the story of how they found it as well, which you don't really get from a cert. It also tells about like their character and their drive and what their interests are. Because I feel like the best people in this career field are the people who genuinely enjoy it and they love learning about it. And so if they do it on their own time and they found that, like, I think that speaks highly of like their interest and capability in the field.
So what would you consider your ideal candidate? If you're looking to hire someone, what would be your ideal candidate?
We have some based on our experience, which is limited compared to some of the other people out there with hiring. But definitely somebody who has that passion, and you can kind of get that from interviewing them. You can see it on their resume a little bit, but especially for an intern role, there's not much experience there. They've only been in the world for a limited amount of time. So being able to interview them, you kind of get that feeling if they actually like a topic or not and they're interested in it, because you'll ask something, they'll go in depth on it, they will explain everything. They're not cutting corners or giving a really simple answer on something where it's just like, what is TCP? And they're like, oh, it's a communication protocol. Could you expand on that? So we're looking for somebody who will actually be able to expand on that, actually has taken the time and has that interest to learn about it. Along with that, we've really seen how high quality candidates, veterans are. So we've had a few veterans who have applied for our roles, and like they might not have all the certs, they might not have crazy sounding experience on their resume, but you get talking with them and they've done things that they've done all this amazing work, and they're so passionate and like actually like energized about everything that they're doing. It's refreshing to see. And I mean, some of our top candidates are all veterans, really.
Yeah, I fully agree with that.
So we're getting down towards the end of the episode. Is there anything you'd like to share before we close it out?
Yeah, I'm good too.
Yeah, so we'll be sharing in the show notes the link to your site and your social media channels. So thanks for taking time to join me. It was great chatting with you guys and learning a little bit more about you, hearing your stories and about your product.
Yeah, thanks for
having us on.
Oh, you're welcome. Thanks, everyone, and we'll see you in the next episode.
Thank you for listening to the Phillip Wylie Show. Make sure you subscribe so you don't miss any future episodes. In the meantime, to learn more about Phillip, go to thehackermaker.com and connect with him on LinkedIn and Twitter at Phillip Wylie. Until next time.